That's integrity to me. That is integrity, is a man who will not tell me something just because I want to hear it. He wants to think about it and make sure that that is actually true for him.
I'm not seeing this deeper side of herself being really tapped into, and I do think she'd want to be with someone where she could have fun and the depth of conversation. Hi everyone, I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. We're in Bachelorette Season 20, Episode 5, and we're back again this week and every week to recap Charity's season. For those of you who don't know us, we're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially The Bachelorette. If you're into this sort of stuff, hit the subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. So this week, we are in New Orleans. The season is going by super fast. We're already halfway there. I can't believe that we're almost at hometowns. It starts off with a one-on-one date. Joey, who is the very cute Hawaii tennis pro person, they kick off the date by going on a carriage ride, and then they have a walk around the city, let's eat, and have lots of conversation. It's probably my very sort of favorite date for someone to go on because it just feels so fun and real to do with someone that you're traveling with that you really like. Joey just has this really cute, chill energy. He just keeps telling Charity he's never felt this comfortable around someone before and that he likes her so much. She's so giddy around him. He just seems like such a genuine joy to be around. He was the first person to tell Charity that he loved her.
I would be crazy not to tell you that I am falling in love with you.
Thank you. Which I could tell was just really important for their relationship. I don't know if I see him being the front runner per se. He just feels like such a fun, butterfly, sparkly, physical, attractive vibe. I don't know if I'm getting marriage vibe.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people on the internet really like Joey, and I like his personality a lot. I feel like they also, you're right, have such good chemistry. They're like always making out. They're like constantly, and they're like
always
serious makeouts. They're not like a little peck here and there. It's like a serious makeout every time they kiss.
It's kind of awkward, yeah.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, Jesus. Overall, I think I like Joey and their connection. I just don't know if it feels like endgame to me.
That's how I'm seeing it too. She really, really, really likes him. He's obviously falling in love with her, but I'm not seeing this deeper side of herself being really tapped into, and I do think she'd want to be with someone where she could have fun and the depth of conversation that I can tell that Charity's also capable of having.
You know, I feel like they do have good, I like their conversations. They actually have found their conversations to be interesting, but I do feel like they're more initiated by her than they are by him. Like, I feel like he can go there with her when she takes him there. Like, if she wants to have a conversation, like in the case of this one-on-one date in their evening portion, she brings up the topic of interracial relationships, which we'll get into in a second, but she was the one who brought it up, and then he met her in that place as opposed to him kind of initiating a more deeper conversation about, something a little bit more serious. So it's not that I don't think he's deep. I think actually he is, but I don't know that it's his instinct to go there unless someone else takes him there. And Charity's totally the person who will always be wanting to initiate and have those conversations. So I sort of wish she would be with, I want her to be with someone who's like that, who's also initiating. But I don't know, I guess people don't have to be exactly the same. I guess if you're complementary, it can still work. So if she initiates conversations like that and he is willing to meet her there when she does that, in that sense, I guess I could see it being a good fit. But I agree with what you're saying, that I'm not sure that he is the one who's like, let's talk about this deep emotional aspect of our relationship, unprompted. I don't think he would just initiate that type of conversation.
Yeah. And I guess that's my particular projection on Charity. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, everybody. I am just believing that in the kind of connection I see for her, and I just genuinely believe that she would get along best with someone that can straddle those different conversational spheres and just kind of have that access to themselves. I feel like Joey definitely has that capability as well. But this is the really cool thing about watching the show at this point of the season is that you get to see what she's like with all of these guys.
Yeah.
So then when I'm seeing Joey, I can't help but almost compare him to some of the other connections she has, where I feel like she's able to go to that place. We're going to talk about Dotun later, but it's namely Dotun for me. Like, he feels like he does that. So then it's hard for me not to see Joey and be like, okay, I'm kind of filtering him through what I believe Charity would really, really want in a husband, not just a boyfriend, a husband.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was thinking of Dotun as well when you were saying that, you know, in comparison, like, Dotun is always like, okay, here are some things I was thinking we should talk about. Like, he always sits down to the date and he has, you know, these, and it's not just like, let me tell you about something bad that happened in my life. Like, we've talked about this before. Dotun will kind of bring up things that are just like thoughtful, interesting reflections. And this, I mean, sorry, not to like pivot away from the Joey date, but this time he, like, Dotun brought up his like fear of failure, which was like such a nuanced, emotional, like part of his emotional world for him to just randomly elect to bring up to Charity and talk to her about that. It just felt like Dotun is totally the person who is doing that internal reflection and kind of bringing it to the table. Like, let's open up this conversation about my emotional world, our emotional worlds. And not that I think Joey's incapable of that. I just don't think that it's not necessarily his MO that I'm going to just always be doing that, in the same way that I feel like Charity and Dotun are just on the same page about, we're going to go there, you know, frequently.
Totally. Yeah, we're so close to her picking her person to be with. So I am just wanting to see more of that. But I did love the conversation about interracial relationships, which Charity brought up, because hometowns is next week. If she gave him a rose, that means that she's meeting his family, and she really wanted to get his experience with that.
I want to know, how do you feel about being in an interracial relationship?
I've never dated a Black woman, and the idea of bringing you home, I don't think it's something I'll be able to learn until we try to conquer that together.
Yeah.
And I do see you for the entire you of who you are, and I never want you to doubt that I can be someone like that for you.
I thought Joey handled the conversation well. What did you think about it, Kelly?
I agree. I think that he handled it pretty well. And I was also just really happy to see a conversation about interracial relationships being aired, because what Charity was describing,
just my past relationship and kind of diving into that, it was almost like inevitable that, like, when we would go out, like, it's just the things that, like, you just face.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but, like, that's just the times that we still live in. It's, like, scary sometimes. I'm sorry.
No, it's real.
I think sometimes, like, I let my fears of what I've seen and what I've witnessed and what the world is, like, it's overwhelming at times.
I can't say that I fully understand what she was talking about here, because I do think that the devaluation, the, like, hatefulness that I receive from others as an Asian American woman is not comparable to the just full-on fucking violence and, like, hatred pointed at Black women. So I think that it's not comparable, but there is, like, an aspect of it that I do relate to as just in general a woman of color, and the kind of fear you have entering a household that's not Asian like my own, and just wondering, like, how is this household going to receive me? Like, are these people going to be weirded out that their son is dating someone who looks like me? Are his friends going to be accepting of me? Like, there is a bit of a, you know, you don't really know what you're going to get just because, and especially with family members, right? I guess friends is different because we pick our friends. With family members, it's like, just because this guy I'm dating is wonderful, it doesn't mean that his family is going to accept me. And even Joey kind of acknowledged that. Joey said, my family is really loving and open and, like, inclusive, and they believe love is love. I think he was referring to the fact that his family has gone through this process of kind of queering themselves as a family, because his father came out as gay, and, you know, the parents' relationship ended, but they still co-parented in this beautiful way, and kind of were able to give Joey a good childhood, and we're able to still support him. So the family is inclusive in that sense. But Joey even acknowledged that, I can't know what's going to happen until we face this together. And I kind of appreciated that he wasn't trying to just say of course my family will accept you, because that would feel ignorant, frankly, because I think everyone likes to think that their family is going to be loving and inclusive, but in reality, you don't know what you don't know, right? And Joey brings up that he's never dated a Black woman, never brought a Black woman home. So how can he know how his family is going to react? So I appreciated the nuance of how he responded. He was basically just like, I want to learn, I want to listen, I want to, be the partner that you need me to be, and I want us to feel like we can have these conversations. I also can't promise, I don't know what this is all going to look like. I just want to do my best in this scenario. And I think that was the best way he could respond. I think it was realistic and measured and supportive and warm, and not like, I'm freaking out because you're bringing this up, or like, don't worry, racism doesn't exist in my household. It was like neither one of those extremes. It was like a perfectly balanced, thoughtful, nuanced response. So I kind of liked it. What did you think about it?
Oh, I thought he handled it super well, the way that he was able to pin the conversation in terms of values. And I know what my family is like. I know that they really prioritize love. I know that they support me. They support each other. It told Charity something about what she could expect from his family in terms of that level of really subtle support. It was really great to see that conversation. I don't want it to seem like I'm not a total Joey fan. I think out of all of the people, he would be a perfect boyfriend for Charity. I just think as a husband, I'm expecting a little bit more from him, or I'm expecting a certain level, but I think he's really, really lovely. I thought the way he handled that conversation was really good. Their date was incredible, and their chemistry is completely undeniable. I think she feels that with him more than maybe the other men right now. It's just that really sparkly excitement that she just keeps going right into.
Yeah, I agree. I can really see him going far in the situation now at this point in the season, as opposed to earlier. I was like, I'm not sure. He'll probably, go home at some point. But now, based on the men that we have left, I actually think that her connection with him does actually seem quite strong in comparison to Aaron and even Xavier, who we'll get into. I think the other thing that I'll say about Joey and his handling of what Charity brought up about being in interracial relationships and dating a Black woman, I appreciated that he also acknowledged that this isn't something that goes away just because I am not racist. I appreciated that what he brought up was that your experience as a Black woman matters. And also, if we're going to have kids, it becomes my story too. It becomes my children's stories. It's something that I am invested in, and I'm not going to just brush it under the rug, because I know it's going to continue to impact us and our lives. And it just felt like a very eyes open, I am active and engaged, and that I'm not going to just pretend this isn't happening, which is comforting, because I think as a person of color, I don't want to date someone who is going to act like just because our relationship, just because we love each other, doesn't mean that racism is not going to impact our relationship in the way other people are going to interface with me, with our relationship, with our children. It's still going to impact us. Just because we aren't racist towards each other, it doesn't mean that it's not going to still have effects on our relationship that we're going to have to deal with over time. And so I really appreciated that aspect that Joey brought up too, and that it seemed like he is not going to shy away from these conversations later down the line. So that was a quality of his that I actually appreciated quite a lot. So I could actually see him being a great husband. Do I necessarily think that he and Charity are the best match of all time? Not necessarily, but I actually do think that he would be the kind of guy that could be, I would be down to weather life with a guy like that, who is so
totally
willing to be eyes open about challenges, as opposed to pretending that everything's okay, because it feels like he will both acknowledge problems as they come up, but also not panic, also not like explode. It felt so measured, his whole reaction. And so just based on this conversation, I get the sense that he would be a really supportive person and just like exactly the type of guy that you would want for the long haul, as opposed to, funnily enough, I'm like, he's not necessarily the guy I would pick for a boyfriend, because I don't know, it just...
Oh, that's so interesting.
I don't know,
Yeah.
it just, for some reason, I was like, whatever, but like for like a long-term, like stable partner, actually he seems like great to me. For a boyfriend, I don't know, if we're just fucking around, I don't know if that he would be the one I would pick to fuck around with.
Yeah, I get that.
I think I would pick
Joey,
Xavier for that.
Joey to me is probably like my personal favorite out of all of the people. I really, really, really like him, and I really like their connection. So we'll see how it goes between Joey and Charity as the season goes on. How do you think Hometowns is going to go next week? Will they be like super welcoming like he thought? Let us know in the comments down below.
By the way, if you've watched to this point in the video and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so. We do a Bachelorette recap of every single episode of Charity's season, and we'll be doing it for, what's the next season? The Bachelor? The Golden Bachelor? Is that what's coming up next?
I think it's Bachelor in Paradise, and
nice.
But Bachelor in Paradise is airing the same time as the Golden Bachelor.
Oh my god! Okay, we'll have to figure that one out.
We'll need to figure that out.
Oh my gosh. Okay, if you all had to pick which of these two shows we should cover, Golden Bachelor or Bachelor in Paradise, which one would you prefer for us to cover? Let us know down below. But anyways, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss whatever we end up covering.
So next we have our 2-on-1 date of the season, and it really cracks me up because this is usually when the show's villain, aka what would have been Brayden, goes on a matchup with someone else, and they kind of face off against each other. One of them usually gets left on an island. It's very typical Bachelor canon. This time, that is not the case because the men have really been pared down. So it's Sean and Tanner, which to me are the most middle of the road contestants that Charity has right now. Does she have a connection of them? Yes. Does she like them? Yes. Does she find them attractive? Yes. Are they deep enough in the connection for her to introduce to like her parents or vice versa? No. So it's really funny that they're the ones that get matched up, and they go on a swamp tour. It ends up being really respectful, which is also really cute and awkward. They're not stepping on each other's toes. They're just really making sure that the conversation feels fair on both sides. I could just tell it was very awkward for the men to be on because it literally did feel like a third wheel date, and Charity was having these private conversations with Tanner and Sean. I would say the most important conversation I'd like to focus on was when Charity pulled Sean and kind of asked him about what it would be like for his parents to meet her. And one of our commenters had told us before that Sean's dad is actually like a super right, super Republican congressman.
Yeah.
So politically, it brings that dynamic into the conversation. That's not something Charity knows because that's not something, at least what the show has shown, they haven't had a conversation about politics at all. Sean kind of takes the opposite approach to what Joey did, where Joey was like, I can't promise you how they're going to act. I just know their values, and I know that I'm going to go through this with you together. Sean is like, they're going to be super stoked. Like, they're really going to love you. I feel really excited about it. This is something I feel, like he kind of went in the far other side of the extreme, which to me felt kind of insincere. It sounded like he just wanted the rose at all costs, or he just really wanted that escalation of commitment, which to me was not... I don't know. I just didn't think it was super honest. I feel like she deserved to know the real situation that she was going to be walking into.
I completely agree. It felt so... I mean, knowing what we know about what Sean's family's politics are, I found it to be so disingenuous for him to act like everything would be okay when she entered that household. It just felt like, to your point, like he was just trying to escalate the intimacy just to say whatever he needed to say to get to that hometown. And so... Or it's just a lack of self-awareness and a lack of awareness of what his family is really like. That's the other thing about this whole family thing. It's like many of us, no one wants to admit this, but a lot of people know what their family says behind closed doors. You know the types of things that your family says that aren't okay. Your family will drop like indications of racist beliefs that they might have, or they might make a little quip about XYZ type of person, and you have that awareness of what could be lurking within. And of course, like, no one wants to think that their family is secretly racist or whatever it might be, but also for Sean to act like to not at least acknowledge that Charity could have some disagreements with the family. It just feels so like I'm just not willing to see the reality of the world, the reality of my family, the reality of what the struggles we would have in our relationship. And so, but of course, honestly, that kind of like checks out. It is a more conservative right-wing view to pretend that racism doesn't exist. And so that actually checks out to me, that Sean would like act like, and I guess just because Sean's family is all very conservative and right-wing, I guess we don't actually know what his personal politics are, because of course our families can sometimes have different politics than ourselves. But for him to just do the whole thing of like, I'm sweeping it all under the rug, pretending none of this exists, that's exactly the quality that I was saying that I appreciated that Joey doesn't have. That Joey is very eyes open about this stuff, versus Sean just seems like, nope, no problems here, don't worry, everything's fine. Racism, who knows, I've never heard of that. Like, that's what it felt like to me when Sean was talking. And I kind of bet Charity even kind of got that sense from him, that she didn't seem very impressed with anything Sean was saying. She just seemed like, oh, when he kisses me, I feel all fuzzy inside. Like, that was like the main sense I was getting from Charity's connection with Sean. It was just like, he's sweet, he like makes me feel special because he like will come and kiss me goodbye and stuff like that. Like, that was like the bulk of what I was seeing from Charity and Sean. And I feel like nothing he actually said seemed to be particularly impressive to Charity. She was just like, okay.
Yeah, the way that he handled the situation to me was like, oh, you don't have a connection with her. Because if you genuinely had a connection, I think that level of care would go past any type of like aspirational promise or expectation or desire that you would hope something to be. Like, just give her the real reality of what you're stepping into, because you care, because you want to protect her, because you want to make sure that she understands the conditions and the safeties of that conditions. And it's not like saying meeting his family would be that stressful, because I'm sure they're perfectly lovely and fine. It's just, she deserved to have context into, does he have experience in interracial dating? Has he ever brought like a Black woman home? How do his parents react in those kind of situations? That was what she was subtly asking. And then Sean papered it over with, they're going to absolutely love you. And I just got the sense from that date in general with Sean and Tanner, maybe that's the reason why she didn't give them a rose on that date, because she still had her date with Dotun. She still needed to interact with Aaron B. So she probably didn't feel super comfortable giving someone the rose based off of a very like milquetoast reaction. I just think no one was really giving a commitment. No one was giving safety and security the way that she was hoping. So she thought, okay, I'm going to wait until cocktails and maybe we can have a bigger conversation, but I'm not getting what I want.
My theory about the Sean and Tanner date is that Sean is the person who I think she probably feels like she has more of a built-up connection with, as in they have spent more time together, because she has had a little bit of time with Sean. Like, he's won like a different date, so they had some private time together, and I think that they just have more rapport. So it almost is like their connection is just a little bit further along than it is with Tanner. Tanner, I feel like she has barely talked to. However, I think that she probably subtly knows that Sean is a little bit, not faking it, but like just saying things. Yeah, I think that she probably has a little bit of a sense of that. And so I think she actually probably liked Tanner more all along than more than Sean, but her and Tanner have not had any like progress to like move their relationship forward. So I think that's probably why she was like, well, I'm technically closer and further along with Sean, so even though I like Tanner more, I should really try to like, you know, give Sean a chance and really see if I want to go there with him. And then the 2-on-1 gave her no new information. Like, her conversation with Tanner seemed to be I can't remember what they talked about.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, I can't remember what they talked about, but it felt like it was a little bit more substantive. So I almost feel like that probably confused her more. I think she was a little bit like liking Tanner more, but thinking that she should just go with Sean because she's farther along with him. But then Sean was so like milquetoast, and then Tanner was actually kind of cute and charming. So I think they like confused her more and made it harder for her to make a choice, because I think she was just like waiting for an excuse to choose one of them, and the excuse never came. So,
ooh, that's a great assessment. I totally agree with that, because it did feel like Tanner was very surprising. That's the funny thing. I can't really remember their conversation, but I do remember thinking, whoa, he's really genuine. He's really sincere.
Yeah.
He's really being embodied when he's talking to Charity. Whereas Sean just kind of felt like he was saying things to say things.
Yeah.
So that was that portion of the date. We move on to the second one-on-one date of the episode, which is with our favorite. It's Dotun. And Dotun, no one can beat this man for me for Charity. I have just solidified him as my true frontrunner. They do a very casual 10K, which is so surprising to me, because I would need to train months for this. They're just casually like running, walking, having conversations with people. I think they finish it in 2.5 hours. Once again, amazing chemistry, super fun. Dotun has such a lovely energy to him. He is so sincere, so funny, so dynamic. The way that they're able to be around each other is so cute to observe. The most interesting part of the date that I really want to get into with you, Kelly, is when they have the dinner portion, what you were kind of saying at the beginning in terms of Dotun being able to talk about his feelings and his feelings of failure and these reflexes that he's built over time to defend him from the scar that he's developed in his life, and how being a Charity is kind of helping him unlearn that. I don't know. I feel like that entire thing was so beautiful to observe and watch between the both of them. And it was, once again, Dotun did not bring it up out of Charity teasing that conversation out of him. It was something that he properly reflected on, and I could tell that he wanted to bring it up to Charity specifically to let her know that she's having such an immeasurable impact on him already, and he really values her as a person, and she's bringing out all of these different processes that he's been doing, but it's now being really beautifully formed or co-regulated with someone.
You said it really well. It just felt like he is doing so much reflection and so much opening up, and it's in the kind of way that is so, it's vulnerable without being like trauma dumping. It's just really, it just shows so much depth and maturity and introspection. I love him, and I really love them as a couple. I just really feel like they are going to take each other, pull each other forward. Like, that's the thing that we've been talking about with these two from the top. I just think that he's the kind of guy who is doing so much of his own inner work that he is going to be able to pull her forward. And of course, we know that she's going to be able to pull him forward too, because she is someone who's so, emotionally aware. She works in the therapy space. She has all of this emotional intelligence, so we know that she's going to pull forward any partner that she's with. But it's so great to have someone who is like her equal in that sense, who is someone who is doing as much of the initiating these interesting introspective conversations as she is. And so I love them. I just think that they're such a good fit for each other. I'm just so scared that she's not going to pick him. Like, I think that she should pick him. I'm just scared that she won't. Maybe I'm having some of Dotun's fear of failure. It's like rubbing off on me. I'm like, please don't fail, guys. I want you guys to land this because it's so good. I want you guys to land it.
I really want them to land it as well. I mean, he said that he was falling in love with her, and I feel it. I genuinely believe that he has those feelings for her, and I can tell that Charity is also developing those feelings for Dotun. They just really resemble true compatibility with me, the way that I see compatibility, because you can have chemistry and shared values with so many people. You could date so many people who share that in common with you. But I think what Dotun has the capacity for is to really be able to be there with her through the many ups and downs of a relationship as well. There's something very unique and rare about that. The way that he's able to talk about himself and the way that he's able to have fun with her, it really resembles the kind of partner that I think her parents would be really happy for her to be with. Her protective brother would also be really excited for Dotun to be that match for Charity, because I genuinely believe that's what she deserves, to have a partner that just embodies that personality and that role in the relationship so naturally. It's not something she's asking for. It's not something he's developing. It's not something he's new at. Of course, everybody's a work in progress, but it's like what you said. They feel like they're actually at similar levels. He's my favorite right now.
Let us know down below what you all think of Charity and Dotun's connection, what you thought about their one-on-one date. Do you think that he's going to be the winner at the end? No spoilers here, by the way. This is a spoiler-free zone. But leave your thoughts down below of what you think about these two.
If you like what we're saying about relationship themes in The Bachelorette, please make sure to like this video. It really helps a small channel like us. Before the group date portion, Sean really spirals. At this point, he hasn't had a one-on-one date. Hometowns is next week. He has a very entitled, demanding attitude, in my opinion, because then he goes to Charity, he has a conversation with her, and he's really centering his emotions, where he's like basically telling Charity that he really wants a one-on-one date to feel satisfied. Like, he's really looking for the rose as some kind of validation, that level of assurance that isn't matching up to where they're really at in the relationship felt very icky to me. It's evident that she does not feel this for Sean as strongly, because she would have given him that validation already. But he's like, I need you to give it to me right now so I can give you this thing that I know you want. And it's like, she doesn't want it with you just to have it with you. She wants it with you if she genuinely believes that she can see a future together. It's not like some experience that she's ticking off with you. Like, for Sean, it would be him having the Bachelorette meet his family. But for Charity, it's a really intense emotional situation that she's putting herself through. So that entire conversation where Sean was making these demands on Charity, perceiving the relationship in this very validation-oriented way, was not vibing with Charity. I'm happy that she was able to be honest and say, like, I have stronger connections with other people. I don't think I can get there with you. Even if I give you this rose, it would just be this pure empty demonstration. It wouldn't mean anything about the strength of our connection. So she sends him home. He might be on Bachelor in Paradise. I just don't love his attitude during this portion. It just felt very juvenile and immature to me.
I agree. I felt that he was very much just so focused on himself in this whole situation. Like, he kept saying, like, I've done everything I needed to do to show her that I'm confident in her. It's like, but she's not that into you. Who cares that you're confident in her? Like, it just didn't, it was like he was just stuck in his own little world and just so focused on his own experience of the situation. It was just like, you're just caught in your own feelings and your own kind of sense of what you think you are owed because you put in all the right coins into the vending machine. It's like, that's not how this works. It's not a vending machine. This is a woman who's looking for her husband. Like, it's not just like I say all the right lines and I get a rose out of her. He just didn't seem to be engaging with the process in a particularly thoughtful or authentic or empathetic way.
It just showed, wow, you're not really looking at things with any sense of realism. It goes back to how he talked about his parents. It goes back about this desire he had for the rose so much that he wasn't able to look at the real meaning that was being assigned to the conversation, to the rose, and what it really meant with his connection of Charity. He just did not see that, and it really went past his head. So then Sean gets sent home, and then we go to the very last group date, which is between Tanner, Xavier, and Aaron B. Tanner gets sent home, and the way that happened was very kind, I think. Like, he reached out his hand. He was really sweet. He complimented her on the way out, which shows a lot about his character. So Tanner, we'll see you on the beach. We see Aaron B, I don't know. He's still not my favorite, but it's enough for him to get a rose. And then Xavier, which is really the conversation that I want to get into because we're starting to see some cracks to this perfect Renaissance man, which I did not expect.
Yeah, interesting.
This was very fascinating to see him tell Charity, I don't know if I feel ready for an engagement with you in particular. I know that I do want to get married. I want to have kids. I just don't know if that's you.
Yeah.
It did take Charity off guard. I think it's also maybe one of the first conversations they're really having about the significance of each other. It was just very surprising to me because I had considered Xavier to be on the same level as Dotun in terms of this is the intensity of the connection.
Yeah.
This is how much they dig each other. It's so transparent on both sides. It kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. How did you feel about Xavier presenting this doubt in the connection to Charity and how that conversation played out?
I was also surprised to hear it. I wasn't upset by it, I guess I'll say. I was surprised, but it wasn't like I was like, now I am concerned about Xavier, because to me, it actually felt honest. In the same way that I haven't been that upset with Brayden. So, sorry, I know everyone was mad at us last week for our Brayden take, but
yeah.
I haven't
and
been
by
that
the
upset.
way, I want to say something about the Brayden take. Me and Kelly just want to point out that we're relationship coaches. We analyze the show from that context. We're not saying anything in particular around who's the, like maybe Aaron B being the true villain. All we're saying is that in the context of relationships, Aaron B had more villainous tendencies than someone like Brayden, who just seemed obtuse. That was all we were simply presenting. We weren't trying to have an edgy, provocative take. We were trying to have a conversation around who would you want to date? Would you want to date someone unaware? Would you want to date someone who's intentionally being malicious and weaponizing therapy speak? Yeah. That was the take that we really wanted to have, but the comments were popping off last week.
Y'all really had a lot of thoughts, and it's okay. We always appreciate hearing other people's opinions. We do. And that's the thing. It's funny. I think some people think that we are like being edgy for edginess sake. First of all, very false. We are often like, is this opinion like too spicy? Should we just like not even publish this one? Because we don't want to say things that are going to upset people like for no reason. We only will ever say things that we really believe in. And if we have takes that are not in alignment with the same takes that everyone else in Bachelor Nation has, we do actually think about that before we publish them, because we're like, is it worth getting into like all of the, internet arguments? Like, we don't want to have those conflicts with people, but we do think it's important to, like Julie's saying, point out when we see something about a relationship dynamic or something about the dynamic between two characters that maybe isn't getting enough attention in the mainstream dialogue. So we aren't trying to be provocative or play devil's advocate just to play devil's advocate. We're always only doing it when we think it's worth the conversation and talking about how this can play out in real life relationships. So like Julie is saying, it's like, we don't know Aaron B. I don't think Aaron B is actually like a villainous human being. We just know the few things that we've seen of his character on this show, the few like behaviors, and we can talk about those behaviors. And in real life, if you're encountering a person with behaviors like this, here are some things that you should be thinking about. And I think that's a good way to frame all of our conversations. We don't always do the best job of this because, of course, we're just reacting to a TV show like all of us are. So sometimes we just talk about these people and as if we're talking about them, but we're always talking about these people's behaviors. Really, we're just talking about behaviors and trying to talk about how does this apply to real life, because that's all we really care about as coaches. We're just, how can we learn from this and how can we apply these learnings to our own dating lives?
And the last thing I'll say is that we don't care that much about Brayden. Okay. Even though we were really we just wanted to see the situation as something dynamic because me and Kelly were talking about it. We thought it was interesting, but that's just our little PSA that we wanted to tuck in here.
Anyways, if anyone's interested in watching this video, we'll leave a link up above. You can take a look at it and see for yourselves and tell us what you think down below in those comments. But for now, let's get into Xavier. So Xavier, this was an interesting conversation, but like with the Brayden situation, I didn't actually see this as being a red flag per se. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, Xavier, he's actually interested in Charity. Oh my gosh, he's questioning engagement, because he did make it clear that he wants to get engaged. He made it clear that he wants to have kids. He made it clear that he does want this whole future, the same future that Charity wants. But the thing that he's trying to figure out is confirming that she is the right person. And that is a really intelligent and smart and lucid way of looking at this. Because just because two people want the same things doesn't mean that they're the right people to do that. That's what we've been saying about Charity and Joey. It's like, we love both of these people. They want the same things. Does that make them the best fit ever? We don't know yet. And so with Xavier, I think it's actually very smart of him to say, you're really cool. We obviously have a lot of chemistry. We like each other. We want the same things. That doesn't mean we're soulmates. We have to figure out if we're really compatible here. And what he said is that I'm waiting to see what is going to be that moment of clarity with you. I think I can get there with you, but I'm waiting for that moment of clarity. And I think it was honest, and I think it was very, very grounded in reality, what he was saying. And it didn't strike me as flakiness. It just struck me as, I'm actually really thinking about what it means to get engaged. And I'm really thinking about, I don't want to just get engaged because we both want to get engaged. I want to get engaged because it's the right thing for us, because we are really a good fit for each other for the rest of our lives. That is, to me, someone who is actually thinking about what's going to make a healthy relationship long term. Not just thinking about, I really want this thing, I'm going to do anything to get this thing right now as soon as possible. It's more thinking about long term, how can I create a successful marriage? Not how do I get married as soon as possible, a successful marriage. So honestly, I kind of even liked Xavier a little more hearing this conversation. I understand why Charity would be a little bit rattled to hear that, while everyone else is like, I'm falling in love with you. Like, it's like a little bit rattling to hear someone say that they're still trying to figure that out, but it's honest and it shows a real integrity and a real thoughtfulness. But that was my take. What did you think, Julie?
I would say that with my take, it felt to me, it depends on Charity's values or what she's really looking to get out of the show. If she wants that typical engagement with someone that she feels very safe and secure with, it's Dotun hands down. If she really feels this sense of connection that is very unique to Xavier, then maybe an engagement isn't what they go towards at the very end. Maybe it's dating each other. Maybe it's them making a commitment to each other, but seeing how it goes, because I also agree. I really genuinely love that he was able to be honest, that he didn't see it fully and completely. It just now depends on what Charity's looking to get out of the show. And I think who she chooses will say a lot about what she's looking to get out of the show. I know that I'm being very all over the place as I'm talking about, like, I'm kind of criticizing Joey, but I'm like, he's my favorite person. And then I'm like, I really like Don. He's my favorite for Charity. And now with Xavier, I would want Charity to choose Xavier if she genuinely wanted to get out of the box of what a reality dating show could look like, what love could really look like. I would like for leads to kind of not do things the way that the show wants them to do things, because it means that much to them. And an engagement is a really big deal to Charity. And if she genuinely feels like it's Xavier, I hope she can let go of that dream. So then she could just enter into a commitment with him and really see if this is a person that she could have that with, because I know it's very common for a lot of contestants to get engaged and then for their engagements to fall apart after 6 months, a year. I get it. That's totally fine. But it does take away from the sacredness of how some people perceive that particular event. All of that to say, I am very interested in how she chooses her partners moving forward, because it says a lot about how she views relationships and the way that she views engagement, the way that she views marriage, and if it lines up to the Bachelor show or if it lines up to her true vision of what it might be. I hope she kind of falls into the latter.
I bet that when you come on the show as the lead, you really got to buy into it, honestly. Like, if you're going to come onto this show as the lead,
I think so too.
You've got to really psych yourself up to be engaged at the end. Like, I think that's the only way that it really works. So I have to believe that Charity actually does really want that, and she has kind of psyched herself up that at the end of this, I'm going to be engaged. So it's not that I even really, personally, I don't actually want her to not get, I want her to get engaged at the end because I think that's what she wants. So even though I'm never a fan of people getting engaged this fast, and I always think that the engagements on the show, almost always, I'm like, don't do it. But in her case, I mean, in certain cases, and in her case, I do actually think that this is what she wants, and accepting anything less, it just feels like she might as well try and see if she can make it work. I don't even think Xavier is saying, I only want to date you at the end. I think Xavier's just saying, I'm trying to see if I will get there by the end of this process. But he even says, like, I don't want to waste your time. So he's just kind of like, I'm going to figure this out, and hopefully by the end we'll know whether or not I'm going to be down to get engaged to you. And I think it's actually similar to what Brayden was saying. So my ideal for Xavier and Charity would not be for them to just get to the end and decide they're going to date after the show. My ideal would be for Xavier to get to the end and realize that he does want to get engaged to Charity, that she is the person that he wants to take this leap of faith with, this risk with, and to just go for it. Because I think, that's just what people are here to take, a big risk. Because it is a big risk. It's a big risk to get engaged in 2 months. You're taking a risk. No one can, I'm sorry, but it's always, point blank, it is always a risk to get engaged that fast, and people are allowed to take that risk, and the risk can pay off. Of course, you'll always hear anecdotal stories of some people saying, we got engaged after a month, and look, we've been together for 40 years. You'll always hear that. So yeah, the risk can pay off for some people, but it is always a risk. Charity wants to take that risk, and she's looking for someone to take the risk with her. So I want Xavier to get to the end and realize, you know what? I like her enough. I feel confident enough in this that I want to take the risk with her. And I appreciate the nature of their conversation, or his opening up about the fact that he's still not sure just yet if he's willing to take the risk, but he's trying to see if he can have a moment of clarity that allows him to go there with her.
This episode is really illuminating. It's juicy in a very different way. You could see Charity being pulled between all of these different endings. She could have a very different men, what it would mean for her. That has not ever been so. I mean, maybe it has been like this in previous seasons, but maybe it's more heightened because her season is a lot shorter than other seasons have been. So, like, we're getting to know the men in real time as they're having these conversations that are so revealing and so meaningful with their particular connection and how it stands.
I think the other thing that I really liked about what Xavier said is he talked about it actually the same as Dotun in the context of a fear that he has of committing, because he said that previously when he gets to this point of a relationship, that's the point where he starts to put his guards up, and it scares him to commit to one person because he only wants to do it once. And actually, I really resonated with this. It's funny, I mean, we work in the relationship space, but I do think commitment is, frankly, it is scary. If you really think about it, it is very scary to just totally believe that someone is going to be there for you, and also to say, I am going to be there for you, ups, downs, no matter what happens for the rest of our lives. That's a really scary thing to say, because you don't know how your relationship is going to change over time. You don't know how this person is going to change over time. There are things you haven't experienced with this person that could come up, and you don't know yet how you'll take that. And so to say to someone, I'm going to love you no matter what happens, people just say those words. But in reality, it's really scary to say that, because you're promising to stick through things that you don't even know what they are yet, right? You don't know what those problems are yet. And so I get it. We can really love someone and just like, I'm so into them, I would go through anything for them. But it's like, frankly, I don't even know if that's the most healthy way to approach life. I don't want to go through anything to be with my partner. I mean, like, I guess I would say that I would, but it's like, actually, I want to be in a healthy, happy, stable relationship. I don't want to have to go through all of this ups and downs. So it's like, I'm kind of promising that I would do something, when in reality, it's like, maybe I'll come into a situation, and I'm not saying that it's about my partner specifically, but in any relationship, it's like, the truth is, a situation can come up that you might realize isn't good for you, and you need to remove yourself from that situation. And so to say to someone, I'm going to be with you no matter what, it's like, you need to really I think you should really think about those words before you say them. And I think that it is something that should be thought about before you just, like right now, Xavier's like, I really like this girl. I really like Charity. But it's a lot to say, I will now go through anything for this woman. Do you know her well enough to say you would go through anything for her? I don't know. And so I appreciated him, the way he brought this up, because I do think we should all think more about what it means to commit to someone. Like I said, it's always a risk, right? It's a risk to commit to someone. It's a risk to decide that I'm going to be with this person through thick and thin, because you don't know what the thin is. You don't know what that's going to be until it happens. And so I do think it's scary. And I think I appreciated him being open about that instead of just pretending like, I will do anything for this girl, you know?
And those words too it's a timely thing that you say when it makes sense in the relationship to say it. When when the relationship has deepened enough where it's meaningful, where you've been with someone through like really dark moments or really hard moments, and then you say, I'm going to be here for you no matter what, and then you show it and you do it repeatedly. To me, that kind of statement is a promise, and is a promise with some weight to it. And it's very important that if we're saying this to our partners, we are setting an expectation, for lack of a better word, in terms of this is how I will consistently act, predictably act when you need anything. And that's a very big promise to make. And the disappointment when you're not meeting that is very, very high. So this is why words are really important. And when you're saying it is really important. That's what this entire episode was to me almost. It was which connection is sincere and which conversation meets the sincerity of that or the insincerity of it. Everything was really coming out, and I could tell that Charity was really figuring, okay, who's compatible for me? Who's a boyfriend? Who's actually husband? I want an engagement. Who's ready for it? Are they ready for it as well? That's a lot playing out in her mind, and that confusion feels more evident than maybe I've seen in previous seasons.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was a big theme of the episode, of just trying to figure out, and I think a theme, honestly, of the season. It's like, who is being sincere? Who is actually saying words because they actually feel them and mean them and have thought about what those words mean and are still saying them given what those words actually mean. And there's some people who are just saying words. I think Sean and Aaron fall into that category to me, versus people who are really thinking about their words before they say them, which is Xavier and frankly Brayden. And so I know those are people, like, everyone loves Xavier and everyone hates Brayden, so it's funny to put them in the same category. But I do think that they are doing a lot more thinking and showing a lot more sincerity than some of the other people who are saying all the right things. But, you know, these words really do matter. The promises that we make, they matter, because this is how people get hurt. People get hurt when we make promises and then we fall through on them. We back out. We tell them we're going to be for them when they fall, and then they fall and we're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, right? And Xavier is saying, I don't want to be that person. I am not going to tell you I'm going to be there for you unless I know I'm going to be there for you. And that's actually, that's integrity to me. That is integrity, is a man who will not tell me something just because I want to hear it. He wants to think about it and make sure that that is actually true for him. It made me actually appreciate him more, because I know he's not just spouting BS. He's only ever going to do it if it's actually coming from his heart and he really means it. So this honestly was a plus for me for Xavier. So
I guess the only con is really, if what you said is true, that Charity really wants an engagement, then maybe he's not going to be that person, because that's her buy-in and she has committed to that particular buy-in. So that's the expectation she has set for herself. Anything else might be disappointing. Yeah. Which is totally valid, but it does rule.
Send the boy home.
Yep, it rules him out of the equation, and it's in a loving way, because at least she has communicated that. He's communicated this. Will it be sad when they break up? Of course, it's going to be terrible, but it'll be honest, and that's all we can really hope for at the end of a relationship. Honesty and, like, goodwill.
That's such a good point. I think we often think that if a relationship doesn't work out, then someone did something wrong, when in reality, Charity and Xavier may not work out, and I don't think anyone did anything wrong. I think if they don't work out because they're just not compatible, or, you know, he doesn't feel like she is the one that he's willing to take that risk with, that doesn't make him a bad person, doesn't make her a bad person. It just means that they weren't the right people for each other, and not every breakup has fault involved.
Agreed.
You know?
So, very interesting. We now officially have our top 4, which is
very exciting.
Super exciting. It's Aaron B, Xavier, Dotun, and Joey. Totally makes sense for all of them. Hoping Aaron B does not make it past the top 4. I feel like he just kind of got thrown in there because he was just thrown in there. I don't know if they've had anything super meaningful.
Yeah.
But maybe he will surprise us as the rest of the season marches on. Let us know in the comments down below how you feel about Charity's top 4. We've made it to a very pivotal part of Charity's journey. We're super excited to see how it develops out, but let us know, do you have any favorites? Do you have any people that you would lift right out and it wouldn't really matter to you? Let's talk about it.
We will be back next week for Hometowns, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel so you don't miss it, and we will see you then.